Here we go. So I want to plug an article here, okay? And I put the link in our Patreon group. This is the A to Z Sports. This is written by Wendell Ferreira. I love that he took the extreme here. He went and basically showed you how they could do max restructures and how much cap space they could effectively free up to the tune of $90 million. Now, Wendell is not saying they should do that. He's not saying they're going to do that. He's simply pointing out, if you go max restructure on all these contracts, here's how much space you could free up for each player and keep them. So keep in mind, he's not suggesting they should do that. All right. What he's simply saying is, if you wanted to keep this entire roster intact, you could keep everybody on the roster and still free up $90 million. All right. Let's talk about what those restructures would look like. Okay. Not in great detail for each individual player, but here are the players that are mentioned. Elton Jenkins, if you wanted to keep him, you could do a max restructure, free up $14.1 million. I'm going to say this 1,000 times because I don't want to misinterpret what Wendell Ferreira is saying, okay? He's giving you the extreme like we talked about on the other side. One side of the ball, you could keep everybody intact and free up this much money. Okay, so understand, go read his article. The link is provided there. You guys can find him on Twitter. If you're following me, you're probably already following him. Elton Jenkins, $14.1 million. Rashawn Gary, $13.9 million. Aaron Banks, $13 million. Xavier McKinney, $9.5 million. Devontae Wyatt, $9.3 million. Jordan Love, $7.7 million. Josh Jacobs, $7.6. Nate Hobbs, $5.7. Zach Tom, 3.3. Keyshawn Nixon, 2.5. Christian Watson, 2.1. Isaiah McDuffie, 1.6. Brandon McManus, 1.5, and Micah Parsons, a measly 1.1. So again, if you wanted to be crazy aggressive, I mean crazy aggressive, let's say you just wanted to be half as aggressive than this entire list here. You could keep everybody on the roster and free up $40 million to go out and get a piece or two. Now, here's the kicker. You're talking about tacking on voidable years. You're talking about kicking the can down the road like we were doing, 4 or 5 years ago, whenever it was, when cash over cap really kind of blew up and went crazy. If you went that route, that is the extreme definition of all in right now. I'm not saying they should do that. Wendell's not saying they should do that. Just simply laying that out, that is an option, as silly as it sounds. All right. Now let's go to just talking about cutting players outright. Okay. Pre-June 1 cuts, the number on the far right, this is over from Over the Cap. If you guys can see this, I know it's very fine font, but I want to get everything on the screen for me so I could read it off to you guys. So if you just cut these guys pre-June 1, okay, this is how much cap space you can free up. Rashawn Gary, $10.9 million. Aaron Banks, $4.5 million. Elton Jenkins, $19.5 million. Micah Parsons is off the table, obviously, right? So when you look at the money that you could free up with Elton Jenkins, the 19.5, to me, that's the most appealing, right? It really is. Because again, when you free up that money for Elton Jenkins, you can also let him test the market, potentially get him back at a discounted rate if the market isn't there for a 31-year-old who's already had an ACL, had other injuries he's dealt with this year, obviously, that ended his season, and he just changed positions and seemed to have declined. I'm not over the moon about bringing Elton Jenkins back, but if you can get him back on a deal, absolutely. I just don't think he'll go for it, right? Xavier McKinney, 7.5. There are some people that have somehow convinced themselves that Xavier McKinney is cuttable here. I mean, you could free up some money here and get rid of McKinney. Why? What are you talking about? Same thing with Josh Jacobs. Now, would I be like crazy surprised if they cut Josh Jacobs? No, because we've seen this type of stuff happen in the NFL before where you get a surprise cut out of the blue. However, I don't think they're going to do it. I hope they don't do it. You could free up 8.2 with Josh Jacobs. So that's just a couple at the top of the – let me mention Nate Hobbs, because Nate Hobbs is getting thrown around a lot. Like, hey, man, let's cut him and free up cap space. If you cut him pre-June 1, guys, you're only freeing up $838,000 in cap. To me, it's worth it to keep Hobbs or maybe ask for a restructure, a combination of let's give you a little bit more guaranteed money. Clayton, he didn't play that good. Why would you do that? Because by giving him a little bit more guaranteed money, you may be able to get him to take an overall pay cut, sign him a check, and then lower the cap number that way. That's a possibility, right? Now let's go post-June 1 cuts. Post-June 1 is going to free up the majority of the money. Here's the kicker. When you do post-June 1 cuts, you got to carry that initial cap charge until June 1st. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out free agency is going to be over by then. So if you're looking to free up cap space now to have money to spend in free agency, then you want to go pre-June 1 cuts to free up that money immediately, right? So what I like to think of with post June 1 is think of the future. If you go with a post June 1 cut, that player is not in your future plans. And also it frees up cap space for next year. And now you start thinking about the contract, the re-signing, right? The contract extensions. Who do we need to extend on a contract? Christian Watson comes to mind first, right? So if you want to, let's say, do a post June 1 cut for a player like Aaron Banks, you designate it to post June 1. You're not going to benefit from it for free agency this year, but what you're going to do is free up $18 million next year. And guess what? That gives you a lot of negotiating room there for Christian Watson's extension if you decide to extend him. So think of it that way. Pre-June 1, now in free agency, post-June 1, future contract extensions. And we know every training camp, that's the topic of discussion is so-and-so going to get a contract extension? Is that going to be done by the time they hit the practice field in training camp, right? So again, post-June 1 cuts, the number freed up here. Rashawn Gary, 19.5. Aaron Banks, 18 million. Elton Jenkins, 19.5. Okay, that's again post June 1. Well, it doesn't even really matter with Elton Jenkins. He's on the last year of his contract, so that doesn't apply either way. Okay, and then if you wanted to go like Xavier McKinney, this is what some we're talking about. Is like, man, you could free up 13.3 million. Yeah, but you don't have it until after June. And I think we all agree we want Xavier McKinney on this roster. Same thing with Josh Jacobs, 11.4 post June 1. However, you're not going to have Josh Jacobs on your roster. And again, you won't have access to those funds until after free agency is pretty much the smoke has settled, so to speak, right? So that's how that falls into place. Now, let's talk about 3 moves equaling plenty of cap here, okay? So Rashawn Gary, if you cut him pre-June 1, right? If you cut him pre-June 1, and we've talked about this pretty extensively, and different sites have different numbers. I like to cross-check the sites so we don't get out over our skis here too much. You can save $11 million essentially is what you got. So it's 10.9 pre-June 1 is what you're going to have here, okay? So you can free up 10.9 million there. And if you cut Jenkins, which I think you will, you're going to free up 19.5 million. So let's just round those numbers up for easy math here, right? You're talking about 11 million and 20 million. So you can free up $31 million to spend in free agency right now. As it sits, the Packers are about $1 million over the cap right now. Let's just call it $2 million, okay? So you can have effectively $30 million to spend in free agency this year, okay? Now, people will talk about, well, this player's too expensive, that player's too expensive. They're always looking at the AAV. You'll hear people throw those numbers around as if that's going to be their cap charge. Guys, AAV is the number of years divided by the overall number of the contract, which, surprise, that overall number of the contract isn't the actual number. We're talking guaranteed money. Okay, if you go out there and let's say like a Tyler Linderbaum, there's a lot of rumblings out there right now. I'm seeing people on Twitter talk about this now. He's going to be too expensive. He's going to be too expensive, guys. Elton Jenkins is 24.8 against the cap this year. Aaron Banks is 24.8 against the cap this year. The idea that we wouldn't go out and get an all-pro caliber center at 17 to 20 million AAV is wild to me. And again, maybe I'm misinterpreting what people are saying. Maybe they're not saying, no, I wouldn't do it. I just don't think the Packers would do it. Those are two different things. I get it. But essentially what you're talking about is if you just moved on from Elton Jenkins and cut him loose, you've got the cap space for 2026 to go get Tyler Linderbaum. What do I mean by that? Let's say he does get 20 million on the market and you have to pay him 20 million AAV. That first year cap number, if you want to backload it a touch, you can have that cap number anywhere from 12 to $15 million in a blink of an eye. So now you're $5 million under the cap. You got an all-pro center. You plug that gap up perfectly, right? And on top of that, you're going into the draft looking to build off of that and improve your roster, right? Now, maybe there's a cornerback you would want. That could be the case. But Aaron Banks on this list, notice him. And here's the thing, too. I'm not saying you should cut Rashawn Gary, okay? I can understand that people want to cut him. What I would like to see happen is a potential pay cut / restructure. Remember what Preston Smith did? I would like to see that. Because, again, Gary is not the same player he once was. We all agree on that, right? You can see it. He's kind of running out of gas at the end of the year last year. If you want to cut him and free up $11 million, it makes sense. I get it. That's $11 million you can spend on another player. But I got to ask you something. Can you go out and get another edge defender in free agency that's going to lead your edge defenders in run stops, other than Micah, of course, lead in run stops and lead in sacks and lead in quarterback pressure percentage, because that is what Rashawn Gary did this year. Again, I know he wasn't great. So you got to ask yourself, do you like the room you've got in place? Can they duplicate what Gary has done? Many people believe you can. If that's the case, cool. That's great. Awesome. I'm just simply saying, if you could lower that number, his cap number, like his cap number this year is sitting at $28 million. If you go to him and say, hey, how about we convert $5 million to signing bonus? We'll write you a check for $5 million, but you allow us to shave off $10 million off of the overall number. Now you get his cap number down to $18 million. Okay. You've shaved $10 million off the cap. You push the signing bonus money ahead onto next year. If you need to, you may want to just go ahead and absorb it as well. But if you roll that way, you get Gary back for $18 million against the cap. And again, you got a role player there on your defense, someone who I think is very, very important in the run. Many people don't believe that. Like his run stop rate is excellent. And whether you like him or not, outside of Micah Parsons, he led the team in sacks last year, 7.5. Well, what did he do down the stretch? Okay, are we going to run everybody through that same filter? Because if that's the case, we should cut Josh Jacobs, right? If that's the case, we should have cut Christian Watson last year. You see what I'm saying? Hell, if that's the case, we should have cut Jordan Love the first half of 2023. Should have just moved on there. If you're going to start breaking it down into fit the mold, to fit your argument, so to speak, right? So here's how I would do it. Here's the whole point of this. Rashawn Gary, try to restructure, and looks, he may laugh in your face. He may say, absolutely not. I'm not taking a $10 million pay cut just to get $5 million of that guaranteed. All right, cool. Thank you for your service. You move on. Bang. You've now freed up. You go pre-June 1, you free up $10 million, $11 million, right? Elton Jenkins, cut him, let him test the market. If he gets a better offer, cool. That's okay. It is what it is, right? You free up $20 million there. You go out, you get Tyler Linderbaum, if indeed he does hit the market. And then Aaron Banks, who I don't know how you guys feel. I'm ready to move on from Aaron Banks personally. I don't feel confident that Goody will be ready to move on. But if you do that, go post June 1 with Aaron Banks. Why? That now frees up $18 million next year, and now you've got the funds in place to do your contract extensions next year. If that makes sense. So those are the three moves I would make. By doing those three moves, it's not effective, but at $47.1 million is what you would free up for the 2026 cap space with just those three moves. Cutting Gary, cutting Jenkins, post June 1 with Aaron Banks, go get Tyler Linderbaum. Your center position is now shored up. You got Jacob Monk backing him up. If Sean Ryan's market falls flat, bring him back as a third backup, and you're off and running. Go into the draft an Iowa lineman. I don't care what his name is. Go get one of those cats to compete at guard with you. You got Jordan Morgan at left tackle. You're going to get comp picks for Rasheed Walker and anybody else, Romeo Dobbs, that the market gets blown up on as well. That's the way I would approach this. One final thing before we move on here to the next topic. Important dates, just so you guys know, it's not listed here, but February 15th, around that time, look for restructures to happen. That's going to tell us if the Packers are kind of going all in. If they start restructuring 2 or 3 deals, you're going to see, okay, we may be looking to spend here. We've seen it in the past. When they restructured, they spent money in free agency. Now, February 17th, first day, the clubs can designate the franchise or transition players. So look for that to come down the pike, okay? February 23rd through March 2nd is your scouting combine. And, of course, March 3rd is the deadline for clubs to designate those franchise tags. This is kind of the mark of the new league year. And then, of course, the legal negotiation period starts on March 9th for free agency. It's all right around the corner. We're going to continue to dabble into this in the next segment and talk about who we would like to sign with that money we just freed up. But if you guys are watching this video back later, let us know in the comments, how do you feel about that? Are you worried about the cap space? Did we kind of set your mind at ease a little bit? Again, you got multiple people talking about this across Twitter and other social media platforms. Wendell Ferreira did a great job just going, hey, guys, here's how, you could really get aggressive if you wanted to. And he's not saying to do that, but just shows you how much space you can free up. And obviously you want to have that $5, $7, maybe $10 million operating fund there as well, which will probably come with the restructures. Let us know what you think in the comments. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you don't miss out on future PTA broadcasts.